What is going on, you guys? It is your boy Matt Talks Films, and I am back with another video, and I am back with another review. And this time, I'm talking about the newest release of 2026, the newest January release, and the newest Sam Raimi film that also happens to be an original horror film that's rated R. I'm talking about Send Help, starring Rachel McAdams and starring Dylan O'Brien. And I can't wait to get into it because this film is so much fun. It's a great time at the theaters, and I implore you to go see this film this weekend in theaters because it's a hell of a time and you won't be disappointed. So, before I get into my full thoughts and opinions about Send Help, let me say this at the top. January has been a really fun month of movies. Theatrically or streaming wise, it's been a fun month of movies, and that is quite contrary to what it's been in the past. If you've been going to movies all your life or just you love going to movie theaters, you know that January is typically a bad month of movies. We get bad movies this month, and that hasn't happened this year. We've actually had really fun movies come out in January this year. We had Primate, which is a fun, bad movie, but nonetheless is really fun. We had 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which is a really great sequel, and honestly one of the best horror films of the past half decade, in my opinion. And now we have another horror film. We have Send Help, directed by one of the greats, Sam Raimi, and starring two really massively underappreciated actors. So, I can't wait to get into this movie, and if you made it this far in the video and you want to hear more of my thoughts and opinions about this film, leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe right here at Matt Talks Films on YouTube for more videos like this in the future, and follow me everywhere at Matt Talks Films, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for more short form content like this. Now, Send Help, and you can see by the title of this video, is Sam Raimi back? And I am excited to tell you that he is back. And I'm glad to see him back in his element here, directing original horror films and seeing that great Sam Raimi horror filmmaking flair within this movie. Because, quite honestly, wasn't a huge fan of his last film, Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. Did not like that film in the slightest. Thought it was complete schlock, complete Marvel schlock, and I hated it. And I'm glad to see Sam Raimi back in his world, dominating the horror genre. And this film is not only a vehicle to showcase his great filmmaking capabilities, it's a vehicle to display the great acting chops of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, which we saw prominently in this film here. So, let's talk about Send Help, and before we get into my full thoughts and opinions, I want to tell you what this film is about a little bit. This film follows Linda Little and Bradley Preston. Linda Little is played by Rachel McAdams, and Bradley Preston is played by Dylan O'Brien. Now, these two are colleagues, and not really. Bradley Preston is the CEO, he's the boss, and Rachel McAdams is this lowly worker underneath him in Linda Little. And clearly, Bradley Preston is not a fan of Linda Little, and honestly, he wants to get rid of her so he can promote his friend and not promote her. Well, on the way to a work trip in a different country across the ocean, their plane goes down, and they're the only two survivors, and they have to look past their past grievances and find a way to survive. Except there's more to the story that might be even more horrifying than a plane crashing and being stranded on a deserted island. So, let's get into it, and the start of this video, the majority of the first half of this video will be spoiler free, but I can't really count on that. So, hopefully you've seen this movie before I start talking about this movie, so I can just be free in the way I talk about this movie. So, how do I feel about Send Help? Now, is it a masterpiece? No. Is it the best film of the year so far? No, but it's probably the second best film of the year so far. This was a fucking blast. I had so much fun in this movie, and everyone else did. I was disgusted. I was horrified. I felt gripped to this film, and I thought a lot of this movie was really funny. Now, let's talk about the characters at hand first, and most importantly, the performances. Because we get Linda Little of accounting. No, I mean strategy and planning. And it's played by Rachel McAdams, and she is freaking great. And I have to say this, she deserved a role like this. Because, in my opinion, she's one of the most underrated actresses in the world of film. And she deserved to have her own film, or at least co-lead her own film, in which she does here. She dominates this movie. This film is not nearly as good without her. She gives a great performance. It's a double-faced performance. You want to root for her, and depending on who you are, you might root for her all the way up until the end, or you might stop rooting for her. But she's a really, really great character brought to life by Rachel McAdams. And Linda Little, what a fucking character she is. First of all, Sam Raimi and company do a great job of making her character sympathetic. And she's really a character that suffers underneath her misogynistic bosses and that is bullied. And you obviously root for her. And you root for her survival. And honestly, you root for her domination over her boss that she's stranded with in Bradley Preston. And Rachel McAdams does a terrific job in this film. She gives a really fun and awesome horror film performance that I think will be remembered for a while because I've only seen this film once, but I know this film is rewatchable, and I'd probably be revisiting this film quite a bit. Might go see it in theaters. Hey, mom, dad, sister, you want to go see Send Help? I'll go with you. I'll check it out. That's how much I like this movie. And I definitely will be rewatching it on streaming down the line whenever it comes out there. So Rachel McAdams dominates this movie. She's very fun. And I like the contrast in her character as this film continues to go. Sympathetic, but also she's a badass. She knows how to survive in the wild. She knows how to survive on the stranded island. And contrast to her CEO boss, who is pretty much useless until she teaches him the ropes. She's a fucking badass. She hunts, she fishes. There's an intense scene with a boar between Linda Little and a boar in this movie, and it's awesome. It's one of the most gruesome scenes of the year, which is saying a lot because Primate and 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple had some very gruesome scenes this year. But there's a scene where Linda Little hunts down a boar so she can eat and get some protein alongside Bradley Preston, and she just destroys this boar in any which possible. And you could tell Sam Raimi's directing this movie because he makes the disgusting scenes that more disgusting. And there's a couple instances of that, and we'll get into that down the line. But Rachel McAdams dominates this film. I saw someone compare this film to Misery and Castaway and saying that's a blend of those two films. I completely agree. And Rachel McAdams kind of gives a Kathy Bates type performance. Linda Little is this lonely character who's bullied, who is underappreciated and doesn't get appreciated for the work that she's been given this company for 7 years now. And she's easy to root for, and she's lonely. The only person she really talks to in her life isn't a person. It's a bird that she has within her house. So she's so easy to root for, and you hate her bosses. Rachel McAdams' performance is going to be compared to Kathy Bates in Misery. Obviously, it's not Oscar worthy like Kathy Bates is in Misery, but it is a very good performance. Rachel McAdams is funny, and she does a very good job of switching modes as this character, and she dominates this film. She really does dominate this film, and this film wouldn't be as good if it wasn't for her performance. I love how split her personality gets as this film keeps on going. I love how terrifying she gets. I love how badass she is, and I love how funny she is, and I love how relatable she is at the start of this film. Anyone can relate to what her character goes through, like moments of embarrassment and moments of being overlooked and moments of just being straight out done bad and being mistreated, and especially being mistreated as a woman. She is suffering under the hands of misogyny, under her CEO, under the newly CEO of Dylan O'Brien's character, and I think she does a wonderful job. I think Rachel McAdams is great in this film, and I'm glad that she got her opportunity to shine as the character in this film, Linda Little. Dylan O'Brien, first and foremost, this guy has been improving as an actor year by year now, seemingly. I liked the Saturday Night Live film they did a couple years ago. I didn't see Twinless, but I heard he's really good in that. I gotta watch that. Maybe I watch it tonight. But Dylan O'Brien is really good in this movie, and his chemistry with Rachel McAdams is great. Whether they're agreeing with each other, whether they're relating to each other, or whether they're despising each other, or whether they're disgusted by each other, the chemistry between the two is very good, and they go bat to bat in this movie, and it pays off. They're easily the second or first best part about this film. Dylan O'Brien plays an asshole very well. I mean, he plays this corporate dickhead who got handed the CEO job after his dad passed away very, very, very well. And the dynamic between the two is this. Linda Little is this hardworking person of this company that she's been a part of for 7 years, and his dad promised her a promotion of being a VP for this company moving forward. He passed away, and now his son is a CEO, and now his son, Bradley Preston, wants to give that position to his best friend that he went to college together and was in the same frat together. And that friend has been in this company for 6 months, and Linda Little has been in this company for 7 years. So, of course, Linda Little's going to be pissed off and frustrated because not only has she been doing all the work for his friend and he's been taking credit for it, but now she's getting passed over, even though she was promised a promotion and even though she's probably the hardest working person within this company. So, no matter who you are, no matter if you like this movie or not, you can relate to the struggle of Linda Little's character because we've all been overlooked, we've all been underappreciated, and honestly, a lot of us have been bullied. And especially if you've been a woman in a workplace, you definitely understand the types of misogynistic aggressions that she's facing in this film. So ultimately, Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams make this movie what it is. The performances are great. They're layered performances. They're performances that send you for a loop. You go left, you go right with both of these performances. Just great performances. And this film probably does not work the same if it wasn't for these two. Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams are really great in this film, and I really can't overstate that. Their performances are so much fun to watch, whether it's them hunting stuff, whether it's them bonding on a beach, whether it's them getting drunk off this toilet wine type alcoholic drink as they're stranded together for 3 to 4 weeks now. And it's really great. There's a lot of great scenes here where they're starting to open up with each other. Dylan O'Brien's character is starting to change. He's learning the ropes after having his leg injured for like the first 2 to 3 weeks. He's starting to change and he's starting to realize how much of a horrible person he was to Linda Little. But also Linda Little is starting to show Bradley Preston who she really is, and she's actually kind of psychotic and she's actually kind of crazy. And actually, as this film goes forward, you're starting to root for Bradley Preston more and honestly maybe just relate to his past transgressions toward her. Like, obviously those past transgressions towards her character were wrong because he doesn't know who she is until they're stranded together on a desert island. But in hindsight, after watching this movie, you're like, maybe he was right in treating her like this because she's a crazy motherfucker. But there's a really funny scene I want to touch on. That is a scene in this film that really reminds you that Sam Raimi's directing it, and I think everyone has been in this situation before. We've all been in a situation before where you notice something on someone's teeth, or you notice something on someone's face. Like, for instance, I was in Italy, and I think we were in Rome, and we were touring some historical place in Rome, and our tour guide had some spit below his lip, and nobody was saying anything to this poor guy. And I was distracted by the spit underneath his lip. And I had to say something to the guy. So I'm the type of person where I'm going through this tour, I'm going through this class, I sit in the back. And this tour was a walking tour. So I had to go all the way from the back to the front and say something to this guy. Be like, hey man, no one's telling you this, but there's a little spit underneath your fucking lip. I didn't say it like this, but I'm obviously over exaggerating right now. But I was like, hey man, there's something underneath your lip. And he thanked me. And there's a scene in this movie that is really disgusting, especially for people who hate tuna fish like me. So, Bradley Preston's being introduced as a CEO. And Linda Little wants to make a good impression because she does still want that promotion that his father promised her. And he's getting introduced, but she's also eating a tuna fish sandwich. And she's not allowed to eat at her desk, but she's eating at her desk. But she's been there for 7 years, and she's a hard worker. Let her eat at her desk. But nonetheless, she's eating the tuna fish sandwich. Her hands are dirty. She stuffs the sandwich in her desk because she doesn't want anyone to see that she was eating, especially Bradley Preston. So she gets up, still finishing her tuna fish. She has tuna fish below her lip, and she's talking to Dylan O'Brien's character. And Bradley Preston is just so bothered by the fact that she has tuna fish below her lip. And she shakes his hand, and it's just a really uncomfortable and gross scene, and it's disgusting because Sam Raimi, as everyone knows, has been watching all of his films. He makes the gross even more so gross, and he makes the disgusting even more so disgusting. And he zooms in on the tuna fish below her lip, and it's disgusting. And I hate tuna fish. I've been traumatized by tuna fish all my life. I hate tuna fish. And they zoom in on the tuna fish below her lip, and Dylan O'Brien does such a great job of acting uncomfortable and being disgusted by this thing, but he also does such a great job of like, hey, I feel too uncomfortable to say anything about this. So it's just a really great scene, and you could tell Sam Raimi's directing this movie from that scene. And that scene happens, I don't know, 10 minutes into the movie, and it's great. I love that. I love when a filmmaker is so identifiably great. It's a great scene. But also, we get a scene after that scene where they shook hands, and if you're watching the movie, you're paying attention, you're like, doesn't look like she really cleaned off her hands. It's fucking gross. Uh, He goes into his office and he's talking to another coworker of his named Franklin, who's kind of like the hand of the king for him. He's a veteran coworker there who's been there for a while, worked with his dad. Nonetheless, Dylan O'Brien, Bradley Preston, looks down at his hand and he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And he holds his hand out. He's like, "Hey, sniff this." And the guy's like, "No." And he's like, "Sniff it." And he sniffs it, but when he's sniffing it, Sam Raimi zooms in on his nose while he's sniffing. And it's like, hey man, this is really unique filmmaking, and it's identifiably Sam Raimi. So I love that sequence, despite how gross it was and despite how much it made me want to throw up. I thought the tuna fish sequence in this movie was brilliant, and it opens up this movie to a really great start. Really great start. Now you feel bad for Linda because you're like, hey, he should have done what I did in Italy and told her, hey, you have something underneath your lip. Fix that before we start talking. But he doesn't, and she is embarrassed by it. But she never finds out she has anything below her lip. Um, and honestly, listen, obviously, I think Bradley Preston's a horrible person. Like, to start this movie, he's misogynistic. He's clearly abusing his power when he's talking to like this person he's gonna hire. It's a woman, and he's like, "Hey, are you willing to go above and beyond for me?" or something along those lines. That gets paid off later in this movie. And obviously, we think he's a horrible person. He's mistreating Linda Little, and she obviously deserves a promotion with all the hard work she's been doing. And obviously, she was promised a promotion. But we are in lockstep as a viewer with Bradley Preston when he's just noticeably disgusted by a tuna fish underneath someone's lip. And despite how beautiful Rachel McAdams is, they do a great job of making her disgusting in that scene because it's fucking gross. Um, it's really gross. But there's a lot of great scenes in this movie where they do a great job of making you root for Linda Little, because there's another scene after that, after the tuna fish debacle, where she storms into his office after she learns that she's getting passed over for his friend. And she storms in and she's like, I was promised this promotion. And he kind of like manipulates her and bullshits his way into like, hey, listen, I don't think you're a people's person. I don't think you are ready for that spot. Even though my friend's been working for 6 months and you've been working for 7 years, I don't think you're ready for that spot. I don't think you're a people's person. But hey, we're going to this trip, I believe, to an Asian country. Come with us, prove me wrong, and maybe I'll give you the spot. Obviously, he's bullshitting, and obviously, he's hoping that she doesn't go because of his reaction when she shows up. But that's a great scene because she storms out of the office and she's like telling herself, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry. And we are rooting for Linda Little. From here on out, we're rooting for Linda Little. Obviously, until we go down the twists and turns. And then she gets on the plane. She's a hardworking person still. She's working on the plane, even though she's been vehemently disrespected. And then the guy that's going to pass over her for the VP job, who also is Bradley Preston's friend that they went to college together with, they find out that she auditioned for Survivor. And we find out she's a huge fan of Survivor during one of the opening montages in this film, where she's eating dinner alongside her pet bird and she's turning on season 47 of Survivor. And we find out that she turned in an audition tape to be on Survivor, and that's why she's so good at surviving in the jungle and surviving on the stranded island. And they start playing this video on the plane as they're flying over, and they're laughing at the video as she's doing hard work, and she notices that they're making fun of her video that they somehow have. And she deletes the document. She's like, hey, I had enough. And then a few minutes later, the plane crashes, people die, and we get typical great Sam Raimi horror filmmaking where the plane is about to crash, the door flies open, people are flying out, and the VP that's about to pass over her grabs on to Rachel McAdams, aka Linda Little's character's leg, and he's holding onto her leg. She is still nice enough in this situation to be like, hey, here's my hand. But this guy, on death's door, holding onto her leg, holding onto her hand, saying, give me your seat, give me your seat. And he eventually puts his hand on her throat, trying to get her seat to him. And ultimately, she has to pick up a fork that's rolling down the aisle and stab him in his hand to eventually get him off him. And it's great stuff. It's great, unique horror filmmaking from Sam Raimi. And the plane crash sequence in this film is fucking incredible. And it's exhilarating to watch. So I know I kind of just went all over the place here. I kind of just described the movie and some scenes way too much. But it's so much fun, man. It really is a lot of fun. And obviously, we're getting into spoiler territory here because I didn't spoil anything really up until this point. The plane crashes. They're the only two survivors, and Dylan O'Brien has an injury to his leg. His leg's not broken, but it's cut very badly. And the first day or two, she spends helping make sure they survive. She's focusing on the fish. She's focusing on water. She's doing a great job of all that, focusing on shelter. And as soon as Dylan O'Brien becomes coherent and awake again, he starts being a dick. He starts acting like he's in the office, which reminded me of Triangle of Sadness in a way because he's like, hey, I'm still your boss. You listen to me. Stop being Susie Homemaker over there and fucking start making some signs to get us out of here. Which he shouldn't have framed it like that, but he was right. But she was also right as well. She's focused on the health of us too, and she's focused on food and water to make sure we're all good. But we also find out increasingly as they stay longer and longer on the stranded island that she has ulterior motives. And they have had like two opportunities to leave and he doesn't know about it because he's unable to walk. There's some really great stuff in this film where he disrespected her, call her Susie Homemaker, and she's like, all right, you think you can survive without me? She leaves for like 2 to 3 days, and he just can't survive. He has no water to drink. His shelter's breaking down, no food, and ultimately he gets humbled. And it's a really great scene. I love this. The boar hunting scene is incredible. The boar hunting scene. I originally was upset that it was a CGI boar. The CGI is pretty good, and the CGI boar fight scene between Linda Little and the boar is awesome. Like she stabs the boar once, it's still going, and then she picks up the broken spear that she stabbed the boar with initially, stabs it. We think it's dead. It keeps on pushing forward. The jaws of the boar keep on closing up and down, and then she pulls out the stake that she had on top of the boar and stabs the boar in the eye, and it's just gross and it's awesome. She brings the boar head back and they eat pork for the night. It's fucking great. It's great. It's great horror and action filmmaking on display by Sam Raimi. The screenplay for Send Help is a very interesting combo to have, or at least for me, because this film is very much aligned with previous Sam Raimi horror films. Previous Sam Raimi horror films are very funny, especially when it pertains to the dialogue written for the characters, and this film is no different. The dialogue written for the characters are so specific to the character, and the lines of dialogue written for both of the characters are very funny. Like, Dylan O'Brien is very funny in this film, and so is Rachel McAdams. They are both really funny at times in this film, and obviously the performances heighten how good the screenplay is, but the screenplay is very good and tight-knit for what this film is trying to be and what this film is trying to go for. For a film that feels like the combination of Castaway and Misery, it feels unique, it feels refreshing, and I think a lot of that is due to the screenplay. The screenplay could have easily been the worst thing about this film. In my opinion, I think the worst thing about this film is the CGI and how silly it does get. And I do think the screenplay does overstay its welcome a little bit at the end, and it does get a little bit too silly, but what's a Sam Raimi horror film without it getting too silly? Like, Sam Raimi horror films are ultimately silly. You watch Evil Dead 2, you watch Evil Dead, you watch freaking Army of Darkness. Even if you go to the superhero films that he's mostly known for in the original Spider-Man trilogy, those films get very silly at times, but they fit the filmmaking and they fit the performances, and this film is no different to that. Despite this not being amongst Sam Raimi's core best, in my opinion, I do think it much aligns with his previous best works in his filmography, and I think a lot of that is due to his filmmaking and the performances, but a lot of that should go to the screenplay as well, because I think the screenplay is well written, and people are comparing it to the combination of Misery and Castaway, and that is a compliment, but it still feels a little bit different to those two, and it feels refreshing and unique. Shout out to the screenplay. Obviously, the performances heighten the screenplay and make the screenplay better, but the screenplay is very good for what this film is trying to be and what this film is trying to go for. We ultimately find out Linda Little, aka Rachel McAdams, has ulterior motives here, and ultimately it was built up perfect because we know that she's a lonely person. We see it. First scene of the movie, arguably, or I think like the second or third scene, where she's at home and she's talking, and we don't see who she's talking to yet, but she's talking to her bird. She's talking to the bird, and she kind of alludes to she kind of has feelings for Bradley Preston. She's like, oh, remember when he was hitting on me at the Christmas party? You remember that? So we kind of have inklings here, like what could happen, especially if you've seen the trailer. And the ulterior motives here is like she sees a boat during the second week, or like maybe a couple days into the stranded desertion that she's on, and she says, "Not yet." And that's all we see of that scene. And then we see the rest of that scene later in the movie. But she is keeping them on this island. She's not really trying to make them leave this island. In fact, she likes this. She likes this spot on the island. She's not lonely anymore. She's having some bonding time. She's superior to him, and it's not even close. Like he has to rely on her. It's not the other way around. It's great. It's great stuff. It's interesting change of the torch here, comparing the two characters, because obviously Bradley Preston had everything handed down to him. He's a rich person, and Linda Little's been trying to work her way up the corporate ladder, and she got disrespected, and now he has to rely on her, and she has to do all the hunting, cooking, and she's great. She's great. She's great. She's great. And the more and more we get into it, they start to form a bond. They start to share things with each other that they didn't know about. We start to find out why Bradley Preston is the way he is. He had a tough growing up as a kid. He was abused emotionally, physically by his mom and his dad. And she had a husband of 10 years. He died in a drunk driving accident, and he was the drunk driver. And he was abusive physically and emotionally. And she honestly gave him his last drink before he went on his drive, because she used to hide his keys, and he kept on demanding his keys. She gave him the keys, and she poured him another drink. She's like, "Hey, go out. You want to go? Go." So they start to relate to each other for the first time in a while, and that's when they're both in a drunken state, because she started to make toilet wine, and they're drunk, and she says something along the lines like, "Hey, we should just stay here forever. You know what I mean?" And then Dylan O'Brien gives a great look of like, fuck no. And then the very next day, he's like, "Hey, would you mind if I made you dinner tomorrow?" And he does so, and he tries to poison Rachel McAdams' character. And as she's poisoned, as she's throwing up this white foam, he has a raft in the little outer skirts of the jungle. He gets the raft. He's laughing. He's like, "Fuck you." And after all that we just watched, they just finally start to relate to each other. You're like, "Damn it, Bradley Preston. Why did you do this?" And obviously the raft doesn't plan out. He gets washed up on shore. He gets saved by Linda Little. And then the next day, we get a very funny but very horrifying experience for any man, because it's almost a castration scene. And as a man, I was like howling in the theater. I was like, "Oh no, 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 no." It was a very good scene, very well written. Um, she has squid that she caught like a week ago that affects the human nervous system. It doesn't make you feel anything, but you can fully understand and hear everything that the other person is saying to you. And she has a knife that washed up on shore, and she puts it in the fire after he eats the squid, and he can't move, he can't feel anything. And she starts to take off his pants and his underwear. She's like, starts telling the story about how they had a dog when they were younger, and her dad castrated the dog because he kept on running away and he needed to be obedient. And he can't look down. He has to sit like this as she's telling the story. She takes off his pants, takes off his underwear, and she puts the knife in the fire, obviously. And she starts to, what it looks like, castrate him. Instead, she's just torturing him, because she's actually cutting up a rat and the blood splattering all over his face. He's doing a great job of terrifying crying, if that makes sense. Like, he is crying like he's getting his dick cut off, but he can't feel it. And ultimately, the big reveal in that scene is like, she holds up a rat. She's like, "Next time, it won't be a fucking rat. It's gonna be your fucking balls and your dick." She doesn't say all that, but pretty much she says that. And it's just great, because the film switches like that. The split moment, you're like, "Oh man, Bradley Preston, dude, everything was going so great. They probably would have found help if you didn't try to do that raft thing." But then you're like, he was right in trying to do that raft thing. He was right, because this bitch is crazy. And despite me thinking Bradley Preston's a piece of shit, like, from here on out, I'm rooting for Bradley Preston. Like, as much as that might not relate to other people watching this movie, I'm really into Bradley Preston. Especially when Bradley Preston's fiance, after all the search is called off, comes to the island with their own boat and sees Rachel McAdams' character. And they're there, like, "Oh my god, Linda, you're still alive. Is he alive too?" And Linda's like, reluctantly, "Yes, yes." and ultimately she kills the tour guide and his fiance. So now Linda is irredeemable from here on out for me. And I know I'm talking about the whole movie's plot at this point. I'll stop because I really liked this movie. I really thought it was really funny, really exhilarating. I thought it was horrifying in some instances. And there's a couple scenes in this movie where after she kills the fiance, she starts to get tortured by it. Like, there's a scene in this movie where she thinks the fiance gets washed up on shore, and she like puts fire on a stick. She goes out to it, and it's obviously not the real fiance. She waves the fire in front of the fiance, which leads to a jump scare, which is really good and effective horror filmmaking. Um, so ultimately, this film is awesome. It's really funny. It's exhilarating. It's horrifying in some instances, and it's a really fun time at the theaters. It's a great survival story that has a nice couple twists to it. Ultimately, it does get a little too silly for me, and I wasn't a huge fan of some of the spots the CGI was used in. But that's really the only two nitpicks for me in this film. That's really the only two things I didn't like about this film: how silly it gets and how the CGI kind of throws me off. But I will say this: it was the perfect type of silly, because Sam Raimi is a silly filmmaker, but he's a tremendous one. So ultimately, I can't really knock down my rating too much because of how silly it was. Because Sam Raimi is known for his silliness and known for his uniqueness, and this film is that. Despite it feeling like bits and pieces of Misery and bits and pieces of Castaway, it still feels very refreshing and very unique. And to me, that makes a very good film, and a very good one. This film is filled with great performances by the two people that primarily are in it, and Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams. And honestly, Dylan O'Brien kind of puts me on notice here. I always knew Rachel McAdams was a very talented actress. She just needs more spotlights to shine on her, and this film does that. But Dylan O'Brien, I didn't see Twinless. I heard a lot of good things about Twinless. I have to see that maybe tonight or maybe during this week, because this film really opened my eyes about Dylan O'Brien. Dylan O'Brien's really great here. He does a lot of great horrifying acting. He does a lot of great douchebag acting. He gives a multifaceted performance, and he's great. He's really great here. Maybe this is where Dylan O'Brien starts doing some special things, because I would not be opposed to more Sam Raimi and Dylan O'Brien collaborations, and I certainly would not be opposed to just more Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien's collaborations, because they are really great together here. So overall, I was stuck between a 3.5 and a 4. I think I'm going to side with the 3.5. This is a very fun film, a very great experience at the theaters, and I think Sam Raimi's filmmaking sticks out, and I think Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien's performance sticks out mightily as well. Great time at the theaters. I implore you to go see it in theaters. Really fun time. So overall, 3.5 out of 5, a 7 out of 10, a 72, 75 out of 100. Great time at the theaters. I might see it again, and I might see it 2 to 3 more times when it comes back out on streaming. Really fun time at the theaters. Really effective horror filmmaking, and really good performances out of the two main leads in this film. So, it is your boy Matt Talks Films. Had a great time at the theaters, and I think anyone who goes to see this in the theaters will have a great time as well. So next week, it was interesting. I almost did an Irishman review this week, because I rewatched Irishman, and I thought it was one of the most underrated films of the past 7 years. I love that film. I think it's one of Scorsese's 4 best films he's ever made. And I might be doing that down the line. In February, it starts to cool down a little bit. And obviously, there'll be videos of me where I talk about my top 10 favorite films of 2025. I do an Oscar vid, but I think I might do an Irishman vid alongside it. So get ready for that. Stay tuned for that. And also, next week, you might see me again. And it might be for one of the videos I just talked about. But also, next week, there are new releases. And I think the new release next week is Dracula, which another Dracula movie, or it might be Whistle, the new horror film starring Daphne Keane, which is crazy because honestly, this year I've seen all horror film releases in some capacity. Like I did see Greenland Migration, I think yesterday or the day before. For some reason, I liked the original Greenland. I did see Mercy last week, which I filmed a video for, and I just spent way too long talking about it. I honestly didn't know how to talk about it. That movie sucked. But the movies I've seen this year, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, Primate, Greenland 2, Migration, We Bury the Dead, and Mercy, which is just a horror movie because it's horrifically dog shit. So next week, you might see me for Whistle, or I might do my top 10 favorites of 2025 after I watch Sentimental Valley, because that's the only film I have to watch left in 2025. That really is probably going to make my top 10. Or you might see an Irishman video, or you might see an Oscar prediction video. Who knows, but nonetheless, you'll see me next week, and thank you for making this far video. If you made this far video, leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe right here at Matt Talks Films, and let me know how you felt about Send Help, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. So, it is your boy Matt Talks Films. Follow me everywhere Matt Talks Films, and follow me everywhere Matt Talks Sports for sports content by your boy. So, it is your boy Matt Talks Films, and I'll see you next time.